Welcome to the Town of Richmond Water and Sewer Commission, January 15th, 2024. Any public comments? Okay.
So I had an idea after this last flood that I haven't mentioned to the Historical Society or really anybody besides Gene, but I thought I'd mention it to you. And just to know if for some reason I shouldn't be pursuing this idea. So you know how the water collects at the base of the round church and the flood waters, and it sits there for long enough that one of last year's flood, it killed all the grass. The Historical Society spent like $1,800 to have it dethatched, I guess, and reseeded, and it was coming in good till this recent storm, and this one's very slowly receding. So my thought was to put like a 6 or 8 inch line that from the low spot out there, which might be on the Historical Society land, it might be on my field land, and to run it to the river, but to have a valve probably on the wellhead land, and it would be kept closed, and then when there's a flood, the water would collect, but once the flood's over and we no longer are trying to retain flood water, we could drain that over a day or so before everything dies. But, and I'm not looking for an answer. I just, is there any reason you can think of not to think about this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so I'm trying to put the
Okay.
picture together. How does that tie with water and sewer?
It would have to cross the wellhead 2 acres.
Okay.
In terms of like going from there towards the river.
Yeah.
It's worth thinking about.
Versus the other direction under the road.
Yeah,
You're talking about burying the pipe in the ground or
Yeah.
just using like what they do when they're excavating and put like a sump pump in with a fire hose?
well, we borrowed, back when my son had a little farm there, we borrowed the fire department's sump pump for like a solid week, I think. And it barely made a dent in it. I think we need, because it's like a line like this. I mean, we need a big enough line that can actually drain it. and
Yeah,
we-
that's gravity,
Right.
where
Yeah.
the gravity drained. rather-
Yeah,
So you would wait until the river died and then you could quickly.
then
drain.
open the valve, which would be probably on the high point along the road into the wellhead. I mean, it'd be, you'd have one of those valve wrenches like you do in the street anyway. You wouldn't see anything,
Right.
and then just drain it out.
Just excavating it deep enough at a slope that would drain,
Yeah,
and then
Right.
probably some permit to drain into the river. Is that a?
yeah, it'd probably have to be, yeah. I would think so.
Stormwater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stormwater
Stormwater,
discharge,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But that would help with the well there,
Well, it's gonna save money in the long run because people wouldn't have to keep reseeding and returfing.
yeah, and it's a problem, like we have a wedding, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, and it's not gonna be dried out, and it's already stinks next to
Yeah.
it.
It's
And we
just
have to
a-
figure out alternative parking, and people aren't happy when they get there and it stinks, and
I think you should call an excavation place like ASAP, because I know when we had to dig all those lines for our water line, we had to run those pumps to get the water out all the time, and I do think it would be worth calling and seeing if you could get one going for this time, and then we can keep thinking about how to do it more permanent.
You're thinking both
fix, but-
short term and then.
Right,
a
the
longer-
short term and long term, but I think short term, like I know the one that we had from John Scott, like those holes were huge and they were full of water and we were emptying them quite quickly, so it seems like maybe it's worth, if you
Yeah.
have weddings and stuff, and I can attest to what it smells like,
I bet.
it would be,
Yeah, all right, that's a good
Yeah,
idea,
they-
that's a good idea. How big is John's pumps? That'd be the hose that comes off. of
it was like heavy enough that it was big for me to put it in, but we were running it on those little suitcase generators.
Oh, yeah,
And then it
Heavy
had like
effluent.
fire hose that dumped it
Yeah.
out.
Like 4-inch hose.
Yeah, and at that point in time, we were just dumping it into the field, but it would, I mean, it was pumping it up out of those holes that were 6 feet deep, like
yeah,
it had enough oomph to get it out, so I don't know if there's an excavation.
yeah, I can talk.
Or the
that's a
town
good-
boys might have something too, I don't know. It'd be worth asking him.
The fire department has.
I
been
can ask
draining-
him if you want.
No, I
draining
think,
basements.
Yeah,
I think Fran got in touch with Tyler. He talked to Jerry about a temporary pumping.
Yeah.
To get
You
that
talked
fire
to
truck.
Sherry, go back.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think Jerry was gonna talk to Tyler and, I didn't follow back up on that today, but I heard that was happening this morning. And so I don't know if they connected, but I think Jerry could probably help you out for the short-term pump.
And then longer term, I can't picture, other than permitting, what the obstacles would be to running a drain line with a valve that goes from that point to somewhere proximate to the river, right?
I mean, it's stormwater, so I don't know.
I don't know how
You have
that
to-
works.
Have to be something with the state. right?
Yeah, I'm sure the state wants
Yeah.
to.
They might want a settling basin or something
Right.
to avoid
There's also,
particulates. I don't
yeah,
know.
there's also tile drainage that they use in like agricultural fields, and it's literally, they put like tubing in that has holes in it that's meant to
Right,
move the water, and that, I don't know what the state's gonna say about the discharge, but maybe if they say no to that, tile drainage would be something to look into there.
yeah,
Ground's so saturated, right?
Yeah, but you bury it some, I don't know, level into the ground, and
right.
it's supposed to help carry it into the,
Move it.
yeah.
So maybe we need to install some agriculture over by the wellhead.
Oh,
Yeah,
It's a whole nother agency too.
yeah.
yeah, ag is a little more lenient on these.
Yeah.
items.
Oh,
That's right.
But I don't know if that's a drainage system you could, I don't think it's strictly for ag, I just think that's what it's most used
No,
for.
but I mean, I know that permitting is
Yeah.
a little more lenient for ag than it is for
Yeah.
everybody else.
good point.
Okay, I don't want to tap you. Mimi. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I forgot to turn this off.
Want me to
After
turn it
meeting.
off for you? That's my specialty.
The phone connects to the
Oh, the
laptop
computer.
and the phone stops ringing.
What's
with the
this?
laptop continues. Anyway. Technology, right? Okay. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Okay, additions, deletions, or modifications, anybody? All right, moving right along. Approval of the minutes from July the 1st. Do I have a motion?
This is Bard, move to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second, Lisa.
Discussion? No further discussions, calling for a vote to approve the minutes as presented for July 1, 2024.
J.I.
Lisa, aye.
Aaron, I.
Bard, aye.
Morgan, aye. Motion passes. Next, we'll go to the purchase order since there's only one. Try to find it.
Yeah.
Uh,
There you go. That's helpful. Is it the one for about 50,000?
I think it's around 25.
So
This one for IT.
There we go. Purchase order 4974 in the amount of $22,440 for the attached.
IT services, basically.
IT. Okay.
the actual amount for water wastewater, so that's a combined bill for water wastewater and admin. The annual amount for water wastewater is,
25.
the annual amount is 3960 for water wastewater, so that water wastewater is not paying the full price of that. That's total combined.
I guess we should note that in our motion or what?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Oh.
So, yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve, purchase order number,
4974.
4974 for $22,440. That's written and the costs are divided up in the top. And for
Okay. Do I have a second?
Bard, I'll second that.
The discussion, further discussion? No further discussion, calling for a vote to approve or disapprove purchase order 4974.
J.I.
Lisa, aye.
Aaron, I.
Bard, aye.
Morgan, aye. Motion passes. I need to sign that?
yeah, I'll send it around at the end. You got it.
All right. So we have, calling for a motion on, warrants, electronic warrant. 24 for 25,309.87. $5,779. And the third one, purchase or warrant report 22,295. $32,859.76. Warrant report 22295, is that the same one? That is the same one, I apologize. Seems like there's another one, there's 4 of them, right? Is there-
Sure.
We have a FY 24 warrant. We have an FY 25 electronic warrant, FY 25 water warrant.
Do you want,
Actually, I'm sorry, there is another PO.
do you want me to do the
You
two
could just-
24 warrants first or all
Just-
4 of them?
You could just
together?
move all the warrants at once unless there's specific questions or concerns on any one warrant. One motion for all warrants is fine.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve all 4 of the warrants as presented.
Ms. Bart, I will second that.
Second, any discussion, further discussion? No further
yeah,
discussion, calling for a vote on the warrants as presented.
This is J.I.
Lisa, I.
Aaron, I.
Bart, aye.
Morgan, I motion passes. All right.
And actually, there wasn't another PO, I'm sorry. We had one, you were right, there was a $1,900 one. I think we scanned it by accident, at the end of last week. Got a little busy on Friday. And I realized after I sent the packet out to you guys that I could sign that one because it's under $10,000, so it's off your plate.
Okay, thank you. So we don't have to.
No,
entertain that.
you're all set.
Okay, good, all right. So, oh. All right, so getting into, additional items for presentation tonight, update on flood recovery. Steve, crew, thank you again. For, another
Every time we come closer and closer to total failure.
close is better than too much.
We had between 2.5 and 3 feet of water in the basement this time. Dangerously close to our backwash pumps in the filter room. Before I could figure out how to get it out and keep it out. In the middle of it all, the power outage, our generator failed to start.
Oh.
Which you just had service.
Which I just had service and I have not called Cat and complained yet because there's been a million other fires put out. They replaced the batteries. The battery cable was loose. But at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's raining, and that's not something you want to have to deal with. Yeah. Got it up. It caused, about 2 hours worth of work going through and getting everything reset and started because it was not just a simple switch over. It was an actual failure. That all happened. That's good. The plant is in good shape. She's coming back she was back running Friday at normal flows. She's was totally washed out of all our micro organisms. We may have to bring sludge in. She's starting to get some of them back on her own right now, but just we might have to get some sludge out of Shelburne or Essex. Although Essex is down right now, they're broken. So it probably will be Essex if we need to get any. It'll be about 12,000 gallons is what they figure we need to reseed the plant. But that will bring it back to life quicker than it's happening on its own, okay? But they would like to see it a little faster than it's doing. That said, our pump station is a complete failure, loss. It is not working. It can't work. It had 5,000 gallons of water in it. We pumped it out and it filled back up before we could even get down in it. We ended up putting the pipe in, sucking out of it, got it down low enough that I could get down there and find out that the sub pump that's in there to keep it empty, the check valve failed. There was just so much pressure coming in from the manhole where it discharges to that it actually pushed it the wrong way. So it was just coming in, coming in, coming in. Got that shut off, got it pumped out. The 2 air compressors down there, one was not running. The other one probably did run. Phil Laramie got them out today. Both electric motors are taken out. We've got 2 brand new electric motors. We've got 1 brand new air compressor head ordered and coming. It's not due until the 6th of August. That was the only one we could find anywhere. Phil has the other 2 air compressors. He's gonna try to, he was pretty sure he could get through Granger, rebuild kits. He's gonna try to rebuild 1 out of the 2. And get us at least 1 air compressor head. He's also working on the ultimate is, getting a jack, like an air compressor they would use for jackhammer. And he thinks he can come up with a way, if we can't get anything else, we'll come up with a way to use one of those air compressors in the system. So we don't have to keep paying P&P to pump and dump for us right now. Right now, that's our only alternative,
P&P.
is P&P to pump and dump.
And how often do they have to do that?
Every 5 hours.
Oh, boy.
It was every 2 to 3 when we first started, but the flows have slowed down now. But it's about every 5 hours. They
Does it fill
come.
the truck every 5 hours? Or
Yep.
is that why it's been sitting
Well,
there? It
if-
doesn't fully fill it.
What I told them was, I don't want to ever see sewage running out of that manhole because that is a discharge. So right now, it's about every 5 hours and they're taking about 3,500 gallons out. Trucks 4,000,
Yeah.
so.
So other than the cost, they're able to, they're not gonna at some point say, we can't come out right now because we're dealing with other customers. They're prioritizing us or?
They are priority us. We have a truck that's parked over at the wastewater treatment plant that they're using to do it. It's designated here. They're rotating their drivers through, so not one, one driver did all weekend. Did all the calls for us, but
24 hours a day.
yeah.
Mhm.
But right now they have the trucks here, so if they call somebody to come and grab it and bump it and dump it.
So right now, in terms of, I mean, there's money and then there's things money can't fix. And the air compressor comes under the heading of right now, we can have all the money in the world, it's not gonna make an air compressor show up.
No.
But the other stuff, do we need to get a better pump for next, like, you said that the pump, draining the basement. Do we need to get a better pump to drain?
No, I put together a 3 horsepower pump sub pump that I found there. Out back while I was dubbing around and put it together, got it down in the basement.
And that was able.
And that was able to keep up. What happened was our big pump that pumps out when we flood
Right,
could not keep up.
that
with
was the reason I asked.
It really could not keep up with it.
Yeah.
The water came in between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. The water rose so fast and came in so hard. It was literally flowing over the well and back into
Right,
the
that's why I was thinking, do
basement.
we need a better pump? You cobbled together one to be sure and.
Well,
but-
I mean, it didn't happen last July and it didn't happen in December.
Okay.
It happened this time. Every flood is a different scenario and a
Right.
different thing to fix.
Okay.
Um,
One more question, and then I'll shut up. Have you kind of, as a result of this latest debacle, which was not your fault, which you did a great job dealing with, have you identified any other equipment that we need to get on hand for the next 1,000-year flood?
Those doors.
So, I had the conversation with Holt Tanner this morning. They really are pushing for flood mitigation, moving the pump station to a higher location. Getting it out of where it is one of the ultimate goals here. Also, the discussion with her was, so I had talked about sealed manholes before in flooded areas, that I think that's the way to go. When I went to Maine, if walking down the road at York Beach
Mhm.
and every one of their manholes along the beach is a sanitary manhole, is a sealed manhole. There's no infiltration of seawater or flooding in any of those areas.
So obviously they're not any good if you can't open them when the time comes. Do you have to use a wrench to open them or?
Yeah,
Okay.
you do. But if you're flooded, you don't want to open.
Absolutely, right.
So I will tell you that, before the flood waters completely receded out of Volunteers Green, our manholes were taking in water this time. They were not discharging. I don't believe we had any discharge out of any of our manholes the whole time. We were able to keep up with it, run it through the plant and there was infiltration, but there was not manholes, there was no discharge. We couldn't find toilet paper, we couldn't find, poop anywhere. I went around Church Street, I went around all the manholes that we had seen it in the past, and we didn't see any.
That's a blessing.
So,
So how much hot, 2 questions about the pump station. Cause you answered one of them, which was, can we get it higher? But how far away does it need to be? Like, I know now. it's
that's the
really
engineer's
close,
deal.
like,
I can't
how
answer that.
far?
They would like to see it so that it's not obviously right there where the floodwaters are. It would need to come back up towards the round church somewhere.
Well, and I didn't know, like, could it be as far up as like the town garage?
Oh, no, we
It
can't
has
put
to
it
be
up there.
close. It has to be within, that's why I
Yeah.
just didn't know what the.
Everything
proximity
runs,
was.
it would have to be, so everything on that side would gravity into it. And the next manhole up is where,
Right before the crosswalk, right?
it's, yeah, that manhole is where, Cochrane Road and Church Street come in. And the other side is, all the rest, Thompson Road and everything comes in. That's the manhole where, but that manhole both last July and, December flooded. So we had to move back one more manhole and it would require some plumbing to be done on that side to make that manhole. So the engineers are working on it. They would like to see something done different there because this is our 3rd flood. Each one is different.
Depending on
And-
how you count them. Because you could count last July's 2 floods.
Well, yes,
December and this one.
there was one on Thursday or Tuesday and then there was one on
Right.
Sunday.
But in terms
but-
of the tank,
The what?
in terms of the tank, the email we got yesterday said we were at 17 feet or something.
We're at 16.2 right now. So let's talk about any other questions about the wastewater plant and the pump station?
Well, just to clarify, if I understand, you're saying, yeah, elevating the pump station, making it sort of a silo isn't appropriate, making it impermeable in that location is not practical. It's better to move it uphill.
Well, one thing, I mean, I'm open to whatever the engineers come up
Sure.
with, really.
Yeah.
But in my eyes, to leave our pump station where it is without doing anything is ignorant.
Mhm.
Fair enough.
I mean, we've been lucky that we saved it twice. This time the control panel this time had water in it when I opened it, which means that there was, silt and stuff inside there. I have Dan Pratt, the electrician, he's coming out, probably Wednesday morning to inspect all of the electric and make sure that anything that needs to be, down in the pump station, the sealed lights were full of water. When I opened them, drained them out, put new bulbs in, I was able to get down in there, hose the pump station all out, clean it out before Phil got there. I was also able to get a new dehumidifier down there, so things were starting to dry out. The 2 10 horsepower electric motors, Phil, was able to take them out today. He believes that, Peak Electric can actually bake the motors. They'll put new bearings in them, bake the motors and be able to rebuild them. So we will have those on the as replacements next time. But we did purchase 2 new motors because, I mean, we don't want to be waiting for motors to come in, so.
So it sounds like we're waiting for Hoyt in order to give us.
Well, that is the ultimate thing, but we're doing everything we can to get at least one part of the pump station up and running. So we don't have to have P&P there, on 24-hour call. Talk about the water house. The water house, so I shut it off at 10 o'clock that night, sealed the line going out.
I'm good too.
So
I've
we
been
are
doing that.
operating out of the tank up on there. It is down right now to 16.2 feet. Last year in July, we got down to 13 feet. We cleaned it was inundated, the well and the clear well both were full of silt. We pumped them out, we shocked it, we did all that. We took our samples in on Friday, I got them back, we failed out of the well. So I did it all again on Sunday and we took the samples in this morning. We'll get them back tomorrow morning. If we get them back tomorrow morning, we're good to go.
If we fail tomorrow morning.
It's shock it again, do the whole
just
thing.
Lather, rinse, repeat, okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. But this time we also had the transponder that's in the clear well. It failed. It got water in the electrical end of it and failed. Was able to get that replaced today and that's all back up and running. We're 100% ready to go on the well end.
But you're optimistic that
water
we're gonna
level?
pass tomorrow.
Yeah, I am. I really hope so.
And that's for water level, the responder.
Yeah, it tells the pump, so at the water house, there is a 35-foot gravel packed well that we pump water out of. The water comes out of that well with one pump and goes through the aeration tank that raises the pH. And then it gets chlorinated and fluoridated, and then it drops into a clear well, which is a 7 by 6 by 14-foot tank underground. The transponder keeps the height of the clear well between 4 feet and 5 feet at all times, so that pump doesn't run dry. That pump is the actual pump that is pumping into the system. And the transponder that tells that pump, that it's okay, failed.
Okay.
But that's all replaced. We got a new one. Tom Allen had one on the south, drove up here and put it in for us.
How expensive was that?
Huh?
How expensive is the transport?
Doesn't matter.
There you go.
Well, no, we have to have
That's a
it.
good answer.
I didn't even ask the price and
No,
he didn't
I
bother.
understand.
I
was just-
couldn't tell you.
I was just
really.
chatting with Josh earlier before the meeting.
I
started
mean,
about how expensive this flood is. gonna
it
be,
is expensive.
And it's totaling up.
Yeah, I've got, the one air compressor head that we could find is 43, it's $4,400. The 2 solenoid valves we're gonna need, they're $1,100. I mean, and that's not counting what it costs for the 2 electric 10 horsepower motors.
So it'll add up, it'll be
Elements
part of our
sensitivity.
FEMA reporting, right?
Will be part of our FEMA reporting. We're not even.
Ooh.
done with
Does
the last.
it say no, thank you after a certain period of time, or is that not for municipalities?
Not yet,
There has been a disaster declaration, right?
not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
No, I talked
That's
to,
No.
the threshold.
yes, at the threshold. I talked to V-Trans this morning. They were still going around looking at damaged sites. The person I talked to said he expects it to be a matter of days before they get the right threshold, and he fully expects Chittenden County to be in that threshold.
Okay.
What is the threshold?
Gosh, I forget, there's a number statewide, and then I think there's a number countywide.
I think it's dollars per capita that they somehow.
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
Formula, right?
There is something like that, but, yeah, the representative I spoke to this morning about Chittenden County was probably gonna be included with no problem.
Yeah, I would think so, just looking at the roads, I mean.
That-
Well, yeah,
To answer your question, Jay, the transponder, I don't believe it is more than $1,500.
Right.
But for Tom Allen to tell me he's got one and can put it in today so that we are ready to operate our well tomorrow. So, you know, if the tests come back good, so that we can fill that tank. You know, I look at it as, he
So-
had one on the shelf. He's like, I bought it and it had a short cord when it came. And he's like, I'm not sure, it might work for you. And it was literally about 6 inches over length. So it was a short cord, but it was
But we're not
long.
gonna look a gift horse in the mouth.
No.
Just say thank you. Can I have another?
But
Okay.
now, haggling is not part of the.
Yeah,
conversation.
I mean,
Great, all right.
I do look at prices and Phil actually, Laramie, while he was calculating some of the prices for fixing this pump station, there was an alternative out there. The alternative to use our pump station but make it completely submersible was in the $150,000 range. And they thought they would get it here before the first of the year.
Now, a completely submersible pump, is that gonna be able to cope with the volume of silt that we keep getting? Or is it just submersible in water?
Yeah, I mean, they're designed to pump sewage.
Okay.
So it would pump, but I mean, my thought is, I mean, there are not many of these air injection type lift stations around because of their design. Most pump stations now are submersible pumps. They're set up with a 2-pump system on rails. And everything comes to the surface. You don't have to crawl down in a hole. There's no confined space. This is an old system and has kind of gone away. It does work and we'll make it work again, I'm sure, but there are I'm sure if Holt Tanner is looking at changing to moving the pump station, I am sure they're looking at a new modern style pump station
Good.
with,
Here you had a
Yeah, I just
comment.
had a question, Steve, given that you've had to shock the well a couple times, once we get back on freshly pumped water, you think users are gonna taste anything or
No.
smell anything?
so what we do is we shock treat the well. And then we pump it until we have no chlorine in the raw water. That is one of the requirements that the state has.
Okay.
So we pump probably 40,000 gallons of water on the ground today, getting the chlorine residual to a 0 coming out of the well. Because what they want is, they want our system to be operating under normal circumstances. So normally our well is chlorine free. So they don't want any chlorine when we take our raw water sample.
Great.
So we're taking a raw water sample out of the well, and then we take a chlorinated sample out of the clear well. And the chlorinated sample on Saturday passed. It was the raw water coming out. So that shows that the raw water coming out of the well was contaminated, but the chlorine system that we have is doing its job. So, all of this is sealed from the system right now. Nothing going into the system.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
What a nice segue to the water data for June.
Thank you, Steve, yeah, that's right, so while we have, are we gonna jump over? I guess we could do that.
To the
Move
cracks.
C.
Or,
All right,
Where are we going?
just a review of our water data.
Oh,
Okay.
Is there anything to even discuss?
I don't think so, cause it's rock solid. And I'll have you know right now, as of this noontime when we tested the water in the system. We were still at a 0.59 for free chlorine, and that's what's coming back in the reservoir. Our fluoride number is a rock solid. It is at a basically a 7, so that's not changing. The state would like if we drop a little lower with our chlorine numbers, they want me to put some chlorine in at the tank, but we're okay right now. If I can get the pump going tomorrow morning, we should be, because we'll be putting fresh chlorine back into the system. We should be okay.
Great, all right, great job again, that's
Yeah.
really
Yep.
nice. Yes. So we're not, no highlight.
And like I said, last time Roland Luxembourg was just here. He's the state guy for the fluoride, and he thought our numbers were great, that everything we were doing with our fluoride, the way we're doing it is awesome. And he said, I can't tell you to do anything different.
Right, well, that's good news, great, thank you,
Good
Steve.
job.
Good job again, so. All right, we'll, follow up on inspection of cracking and water tank.
So as we mentioned last time, we had a couple of different engineers that could look at this, after consulting with our attorneys and Vermont League of Cities and Towns, both of whom I brought in because we're, considering the severity of, or potential severity of the cracking of the water tank. Want to make sure that we're having, our legal team and our insurance company involved in the process. So our attorney is gonna be reaching out to David Todd Hittinger of Heritage Engineering. He's an engineer that's suggested by another engineer that our attorney was working with, and he'll be hopefully coming in to do an inspection of the tank. He'll give us an assessment of what's the severity of it, what corrective measures can be taken, and if he'll maybe at least an initial assessment of, does he think it was a design or construction flaw? Steve, do you have any more?
No, I mean, I haven't, other than looking at the tank, I haven't done anything.
The tank is still there. It hasn't disappeared. Moving on.
It's lighter right now.
Yeah, not as, under as much stress. I'm curious, like, how often do concrete tanks get replaced?
Not with the-
Well, you
Hopefully
don't
before-
want to.
Yeah,
We'd like to at least finish paying on this one.
and it's only what, 10 years old, I think?
Yeah.
2014, I think, is when we put
Yeah.
it in.
I think so.
Yeah, to
We
get
talked about it as a 100-year
100-year.
project.
Yeah.
Right. Here we go.
100 years ain't what it used to be.
Working as good as the
No,
floods.
it's not, it's like a 1,000-year flood, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We've had, yeah, haven't we had 3 of those in the last?
But in all seriousness, I hope we get an inspection soon and then
Yeah.
get some answers on, how bad is it? What needs to be done to change it? Is there a permanent fix? How expensive is that permanent fix? So we'll have to, that'll help us drive what
thi-
we do next.
I really think we get on a preventative maintenance
Mm.
now.
Right.
I mean, I think it's obviously gonna be something that we're gonna have to keep in track of every 3 years. We're required to clean the tank. The divers are in there. We should review the data and
Maybe
everything.
inject the toxin,
Yeah.
cracks, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, no, good. All right, thank you, Josh. Next up is, so we've really had the superintendent's
Yeah,
report.
I mean, it's been all flood related.
That's right.
I will say that, the only reason we didn't take any septage this week was because the road was flooded.
Hmm.
We had the ability to take and process and treat all of our septage. I even opened up, I had a lot of people calling and asking if I would take on Saturday. We took, I think 15,000 gallons on Saturday because all the other treatment plants were not open.
Will that help with the bacteria levels to make it healthier?
Not really, because the septage is treated totally separate from the tank. I asked Rural Water if we could seed the plant with septage, And they really, really suggested heavily that we not do that,
Okay.
that we actually get some activated sludge from another plant
Mm.
and use that.
Okay.
They say it would just be too slow.
No, they worry that not all septage is septage.
Right, you know,
It's been pouring.
We've all, and we know that, we've obviously had some issues with septage coming in
Mm.
and causing problems, and they recommend that we really go right to another plant and get some of their sludge and dump it right into our aerated basin.
And we want nothing but the best quality sludge.
Yeah, we do.
Sludge, good sludge. Okay, great.
I have,
Yep.
Go ahead, Jay.
a while back, you got some applications and none of them had experience, but a lot of them seem to have some aptitude. Any news on that?
I have them sitting on my desk. My intent was Monday of this week. Actually, I think it was last week. I was gonna make some phone calls, set up some interviews.
And then this flood happened.
Yeah, and so you know what? That goes to the wayside really right now. On that note, I will say that Brad and Mike have done great work. And we are loaning Mike out to Highway because Mike has a CDL, and Pete Goslin was thrilled to have another truck driver. We really, we didn't need him. I mean, to deal with the flood response. He is more of an asset for Pete right now to be, instead of hauling 6 loads of dump truck loads today, they were able to haul 12 or 13 or something like that.
Good job. That's
So,
good thinking.
it's a day-to-day thing. If we don't have a lot where we need him, and this is just flood response right now. So Mike has been loaned to Pete, and Pete is putting him right to work, so.
Okay, thank you.
And that's and like I talked with Pete, that's how the town should work, in my eyes.
Well, the
And,
library staff can, I mean,
well,
They have a CDL.
yeah, I
I
mean,
wouldn't put it past Rebecca to have one.
but that's how it should work. If I need him, I can call him and get him back. But, for the time being, Brad and I have a pretty good handle. This is our 3rd flood, so we kind of know what we've got to do, and we work pretty good together. And Pete, Mike is can drive truck and he can operate equipment, so he is a value to the town in that regards of getting roads fixed and stuff. So that's where we've let him. And I asked Josh, and Josh said, if you don't need him,
There you go.
send him.
Good.
Right.
No, it's all a
So-
joint community effort. Right. Any more questions for superintendent reports? All right, thank you. Last item here is relocating the dewatering facility. This is the continuing discussion.
Yeah, I mean, this is just something that came up when I went to a meeting there, and the state has a grand plan where they would like us to have a dewatering plant located closer to the interstate.
They're gonna pay for it?
Well, they could pay for the piping, which would alleviate a lot of problems.
I guess not to sound like a jerk, but it doesn't feel like there's many spots closer to the interstate that
That
are
don't
available
flood.
that don't flood, so I'm a little. Might just have a
Yeah.
shitty attitude right now, but it doesn't seem like there's.
No, I agree. I will say,
options.
that during the flood, I took a phone call from a guy who was adamant about he had a water main break, a water meter break, and he kept giving me the address, and I'm like, sir, I do not have that address in Richmond. It was, I can't, as something freeway. I'm like, sir,
Talking Barry or something.
no, we're talking Richmond, Virginia. He had Googled Richmond Water Department and my number came up.
Well, on behalf of my fellow Virginians, my apologies.
So I directed him kindly to, I mean, he called like 3 times, and I'm like, sir. He's like, I don't know, it's a 2-inch water main, it's flooding this car dealership, and he's like, I can't get it
Car
shut off.
dealership in Richmond.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as
We're
David
moving
Founder's
up.
house.
There you go.
So I was like, I'm like, you need to Google again, sir, cause
That beats my story of a dumpster delivery on Friday. He was on Duxbury Road, going back and forth thinking he was on Dugway Road. And the resident standing out there, is he coming? He says he's there. Oh, sir, you're in Bolton.
yeah.
So you got me beat by 1,000 miles though.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I explained to him, the guy will come, he'll shut off your curb stop, your whatever. And he's like, oh, well, I need him now. And I'm like, I've got a lot of other things to deal with.
After the third call, you just tell them you're on your way.
Yeah.
So where does this leave us with a conversation about a dewatering facility?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think of things as red light, green light, yellow light. This is like yellow light if they want it, A.
Right.
What would they put up? B, where would it go?
Well, I think part of this is in the grand scheme of things, as Richmond grows, we should be thinking about the facility that we have down here is not getting any bigger. The footprint.
Mhm.
I can't get the flood to leave me an island beside it to grow onto. But the dewatering plant does not have to be there. It could be located anywhere else that we have access to the sewer system.
You just kind of lines that go to it.
Right.
So that's back to how many times have we talked about extending lines out to the gateway? So
Right.
in theory, yeah, it could work, but what would they be? Other than saying, we'd like you to do this.
Well, no, see, what they said was they would like a third party to be doing this. And when they said that, I'm like, well, if this is gonna if you guys are really serious about, making the quality of life on Esplanade better from getting rid of the truck traffic and putting it out there, and now you're talking about taking our revenue away from us and having an independent third party operate a dewatering plant. And my say was, no, that's gonna be our plant, and we'll process our municipal sludge with the septage like we're doing, but don't lose control of it. I mean,
And who is they that would like to, that proposes this?
it's Eamon is in charge of the solid end of the wastewater treatment plants. And they had a big multi-million-dollar study done over the whole state for dealing with septage. Because obviously in our state, that is a big deal, because I think it was like 75% of the households are on septic tanks. And you have to have a way of processing it.
So would it be like an outfit like P&P that would build their own private, like, not saying they're going to?
No.
It would be something like that, or like
Yeah,
a.
it would
Wind
be
River
like
or something.
P&P set up their own dewatering plant. They would come to the town and agree to do, they would agree to make sure that the effluent discharged into our system was as good as what we're doing. And we would probably, at that point, we would make a deal that they would process our sludge from the municipal plant through their system. But my thing was, why are we losing the revenue?
Right, I mean, it makes sense.
So it would seem my advice to this state person would be a prudent course of action is to engage in constructive conversation with the leaders of the town.
Yeah.
whether you have any intent.
And the first big red flag was he was mystified. You don't have pipes out there?
It's a symptom of that problem of
Yeah.
not engaging in constructive conversation with the leaders of the system.
Well, he didn't even ask
Yeah.
the system itself.
Well, it sounds-
He had no idea that there were no sewer mains out there.
So I'm gonna make a suggestion. I suggest we set up a meeting with this
Yeah.
person and or his
Sure.
superiors.
Actually,
Discuss
it's,
what's your plan? And I don't mean this to be, intending any conflict, just like, let's get a conversation started.
yeah, I mean, and that's what I think we need to do. I think operating the dewatering plant and treating septage is good for the town. And I'm not saying not to do it, but I'm saying, maybe we should look at relocating it, making the state a little happier, maybe get some money from them, and keep control of it. And that would give the ability to have a bigger treatment plant if we needed it in the future.
And what's the smell of a dewatering plant for the neighbors?
It's,
Same as it is now.
yeah, same as it is now down at the green.
But my point is, there aren't a lot of real close neighbors. So
Yeah.
when you think, where would it go up there?
And there are better ways of, one of the things that they propose in the 20-year study is covering the digester.
Yeah.
And that is to control the smell. And so I assume that if we were building a new one or the state was building one, that it would be covered tanks, covered digester, with a odor control plan in effect.
I'll also observe that we have an apparent conflict between the parts of state government that would like to see more housing there and the people that would like to see a dewatering plant there. Those don't seem like,
Yeah, I know.
Those be the
Maybe that
same
could be the
building?
bottom though, it'd be like a pool, like a built-in
We'll just, the second, third. fourth
condos
floor
on
we have.
top.
Yeah.
I guess my other question is, does the town own any land?
I don't think
out
so.
In that, like, cause we would have to then acquire also
Yeah.
a piece of land from a
Somebody
private
would.
entity.
And
Yeah.
you look right now, there's not much land there that doesn't get wet.
Yeah, when we have our meeting, I'll bring some drone footage.
Anyway, let's,
Seems
Yeah.
very far out, very hypothetical.
Yeah, no, I got it.
But would we need to be a reliable, sort of place for that to go? I mean, if we're out, if we have an outage of any sort, are we still required to treat that? Material coming in?
Treat septage?
I mean, if they're
Um,
counting on us to do it, do they have a second choice, or we have to run?
They have earmarked our facility as a very valuable asset in the system of treating septage. For the size of our plant, it is unheard of to treat the amount of septage that we've been able to treat. We have treated upwards of 100,000 gallons of septage a day. And done it pretty, right now, I text the haulers, I look for 50,000 gallons a day as a good number. And I'm fairly reliable that we can do 75 without blinking an eye, or having any problems. The dewatering plant, since we put the 2 new channels in, is phenomenal. The type of press aid that's coming off is crystal clear. And the cake that we're making, it looks like compost. It literally is dry.
So
It
there's
is-
not really an overwhelming need except to make somebody in the state happy. Things are.
Well,
Okay.
Sounds like they got-
there is a need for it, and as housing develops more and more that's not on municipals, there is a need to treat septage, and Richmond in the past and still is doing a really good job of it and taking a large quantity. We take about the same amount as, there are days when we take as much as Montpelier processes.
Sure.
So Steve, I'm gonna stop this now because we need to
Yeah.
wrap
Yeah.
it up, but, it's like,
Find out the value of what we're doing and add 20 or 30%.
oh, yeah, right, no doubt, I mean, we
I think we
can,
should have a meeting with them.
yes. Let's.
I'll set it up.
This is the first time I think I've ever seen you without
At
suspenders.
some point, I mean,
Yeah.
I would, it's not
It's
urgent.
not urgent,
Yeah.
like, I'm
It's-
thinking in the next 6 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Big
you.
fan.
It's so far high in the
Yes.
In the
sky.
meantime, we're gonna start searching
No, no.
for land too.
Yes.
So-
I'll get you the link to the,
The report or plan.
well, the report, and it has, a thing where you can track septage throughout the state, and it shows, like, if you take, Richmond out of the picture, it shows you how the flow of septage all changes.
Mhm.
Really,
Interesting.
and where it has to, it increases the trucking
Yeah,
dramatically.
I bet it does. So I can see
And when
the-
you're trying to do a green
Strategic
system,
location.
you know, you cut down on trucking, and that's where they start to say, ooh, Richmond is a valued asset.
You got the interstate
Yeah,
interchange there.
Yep.
Very well, if-
when it's not underwater.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, yes.
do we have agenda items for next meeting?
So. we don't need-
Flood update.
Yeah.
Yeah, flood update is a good one.
Staffing update.
Staffing
Yeah.
update. The water tank inspection.
Yep,
You should be in on that.
we'll
Yep.
probably have July numbers, maybe.
July numbers.
Oh, yeah, you'll have them. They'll be a little, they're good, don't get me wrong, but they're a little on the weird side.
Something to add to the
I
agenda.
just have a compliment for your commissioner here. I want to appreciate what you said last time about hiring somebody that hasn't learned bad habits that you can teach them the right way. I really appreciate that.
Okay,
That's valuing a resource that you haven't yet hired, but
Yeah.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other comments? If not, if somebody can make a motion.
Mr.
Adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye?
Hi.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.